Chapter 14. The fire crackled low in the stone hearth of the tower study. Dimitri Sinclair turned a page of parchment with the edge of a silver ring finger, the flickering light catching the wax seals and names sprawled in careful ink. Reports. A half-finished letter with the royal seal. He reached for a quill and then stopped for a moment. Then, without looking up, he said,
"I can almost feel you, breathing on my neck."
A figure emerged from the shadows near the back wall, making no grand entrance, just a ghostly grace in his movements. He stood silently, neither bowing nor uttering a word. Dimitri remained engrossed in his paperwork, sliding a sealed scroll across the desk.
"Here, take this,"
he said.
"It took a bit of time, but I've managed to add you to the King's secondary support team, the one set to meet the Prince later. You'll be the 4th member."
He paused before adding,
"The Prince is leaving today. Don't get too carried away. An unfortunate accident will suffice. But if a better opportunity arises for him to vanish, seize it. I need you to succeed. But make sure there are no traces back to us."
The man stepped forward and snatched the scroll, and Dimitri tossed him a heavy sack that clinked with the sound of coins. Peering inside, the man broke into a sinister grin before fading back into the shadows. As the morning slipped away, the group found themselves on a dusty road heading into the woods by noon. The path meandered gently through sparse trees and rolling hills. Dante rode near the middle of the pack, mostly keeping to himself. Up front, Captain Amedria occasionally called out orders, but allowed the quiet to linger. The first day had turned out to be unexpectedly calm. Later in the afternoon, they passed by 2 weathered stone markers that lined the road. Soon after, the sound of hoofbeats reached their ears. 4 riders came into view from the rear, moving at a steady pace with their banners rolled up, appearing proper and poised. Amedria lifted her hand.
"Halt!"
The group slowed. The riders came to a stop just ahead. The leader, a man in clean standard-issue armor, removed his helmet.
"Lieutenant Rourke, ma'am. We were dispatched this morning to reinforce your escort. Lay orders. We carry writ from the king."
She dismounted, accepted the scroll. The seal looked intact. The document held the king's hand, the familiar flourish. No one said anything for a long moment. Dante remained in the saddle watching.
"All right. Just try not to cause any trouble,"
Captain Amedria said, tucking the scroll into her pouch. She climbed onto her horse and signaled for the group to move on. The new arrivals lagged at the back, moving slowly. Dante glanced over at the reinforcement team, which included a male orc, a female beastwoman, and 2 human men. One was an archer, while the other wielded a spear. As he studied the group, the orc caught Dante's gaze and flashed a grin that made him uneasy. Not wanting to engage any further, Dante turned away and resumed riding. Before long, night fell, and the camp came together under dense tree cover. A small fire crackled at the edge of the campsite, with tents set up in a circle and guards taking turns keeping watch in pairs. Dante settled cross-legged in his tent, enjoying the cool and tranquil air surrounding him. A lone lamp flickered beside him, illuminating the floor rugs and the tent pole's edges. He shut his eyes, letting his breath calm down. Managing his mana was tricky when he was exhausted, but he understood that if he didn't keep it in check, he could become a liability on this mission. Gradually, he allowed his mind to drift inward. Suddenly, it was as if he had submerged himself underwater. Everything fell silent. Not the kind of silence that you notice physically, but something much deeper. It was a stillness that enveloped him completely. The darkness felt like soft velvet, cool and endless. Within this void of his mana, Dante found himself in a state beyond simple meditation or thought. The outside world faded away, leaving just the flow of energy within him. This time, instead of resisting him, it embraced him, like water settling into a new shape. Power surged through him, warm, electric, alive. His fingers felt a faint spark, a vibrant energy thrummed beneath his skin. Everything felt perfect. For the first time in what seemed like years, he genuinely smiled. But then, the energy didn't just flow. It started to swell, then surge. His breath hitched in his throat. What had felt pleasant quickly turned overwhelming, pressing outward through every vein in his body. Light exploded behind his eyes, and he could feel the mana screaming within him. The energy was burning hot. He tried to let it go, to hold back the surge, but it was too much to contain. The pain folded in on itself like hot steel, intense and suffocating. And then he jolted awake with a shout. His body dropped to the tent floor, his chest heaving for breath. Sweat clung to his skin, and his mouth felt parched. A burning sensation shot up his thigh. Looking down, he saw 2 deep punctures bleeding through his pants, pain radiating from the wounds. The smell of burnt flesh filled the air. Turning his head, he spotted a snake next to him, charred black and lifeless, its fangs exposed, and smoke still wafting from its body. He tried to reproduce the same feeling from his meditation, and after focusing for a moment on his hand. Flickers of blue lightning danced faintly in his palm, his fingers trembling, not from fear, but from sheer wonder. He had finally done it. Real magic. He let out a soft laugh, but then winced in pain. The bite on his leg was hurting worse now, and a wave of heat rushed through him. He reached out and grabbed the support pole of the tent to steady himself.
"Captain,"
he croaked.
"I need you."
There was a moment of silence before he heard quick, heavy footsteps. The tent flap flew open, and Captain Amedria stepped inside, her hand instinctively going to her sword as she scanned for any threats. But all she found was the prince, kneeling on the rug, bare-chested and drenched in sweat. She froze, her expression shifting from alert to uncertain and then to alarm as she took in the scene. Dante looked up at her, his breath irregular and his hair sticking to his forehead. He spoke in a low, desperate voice.
"I need help. Please."
She glanced at his shiny skin, her eyes darting to his heavy breathing and the soft light from the lamp that illuminated his collarbone. Dante was rubbing on his inner thigh, clearly uncomfortable. He was no longer just a boy. He was on the threshold of manhood. Her mind, already wired from a long day of travel, began to spiral into frantic thoughts. She'd protected royalty before, but this was the moment her mother had cautioned her about, right? The one where duty mixed with other confusing feelings. She remembered the hushed tales of young princes and their desires, and warmth flooded her cheeks. Was her role really just to guard him? She wondered bitterly. Could it be? The king could have assigned any woman for this task. Anyone could have been there to see to the prince's nighttime desires. All those years of hard work to get to her position. And now it felt like she was just being used without a second thought. Amedria cleared her throat, trying to steady herself.
You wanted to see me?
"I did."
Dante replied, adjusting his position to get more comfortable, a grimace crossing his face as he did. His hand continued to rub his inner thigh.
"I need your help with something."
Her heart raced. Help him with something? She felt conflicted. There was no denying he was an attractive young man, but her job was to protect, not serve him. The word echoed in her mind, unwelcome and unsettling.
What do you need help with exactly?
She asked, her voice betraying her tense feelings.
"It's something I want only you to do."
Dante said, lowering his voice, the hint of pain evident. He paused before continuing.
"It might involve sucking something."
Amedria's eyes widened in shock. The atmosphere suddenly felt charged. Sucking something? She felt heat flood her face. This was the moment she never expected, the prince, alone and slick with sweat, asking her to do that. Without thinking, her hand moved to the clasp of her tunic. Don't jump to conclusions. She repeated this mantra in her head, but her fingers were already awkwardly fumbling with the first button. She could feel the fabric shifting loose at her chest. Dante, still nursing his thigh injury, glanced up, completely unaware of her turmoil. She opened her mouth, then quickly shut it again, feeling a sudden dryness in her throat. Her eyes flitted around the tent, avoiding his gaze at all costs.
"What are you doing?"
He asked. Dante let out an exasperated sigh and, with some effort, pulled his pants down below his knees. Amedria blinked in shock. Her lips parted in surprise, and her fingers stilled on the button. She braced herself for whatever was about to happen next. Then she saw it. There was inflamed, tender skin, 2 deep bleeding puncture wounds, a dead, sizzling snake lying nearby.
Oh.
She said flatly, her voice stripped of any panic or assumptions that had just consumed her. Her expression shifted from shock to horror as the color drained from her face.
A bite.
Yeah,
Dante replied, exhaling in relief, completely unaware of her spiraling thoughts.
it got me while I was meditating. I think I may have accidentally killed it.
He looked at her, genuine concern etched on his brow.
I think I've been poisoned.
She took a quiet breath, barely noticeable, rubbing the bridge of her nose as she fought the overwhelming urge to bash her head against a tent pole.
I'll grab the medicine pouch,
She said, her tone short and brisk. Dante tilted his head back, staring up at the fabric ceiling.
Did I say something wrong?
Amedria didn't respond. She hurried out of the tent, nearly tripping as she stepped into the cool evening air. He could have sworn her ears were an even deeper shade of red than her cheeks.